Welcome back to the Fantasy Hockey Podcast. I'm your host, Gamby, and I'm with my co-host, Brandon, and we have a few announcements really quick before we get started. I swear they're good ones. The first one here is that the normal giveaway that we announced on Christmas for the holiday special, where we gave away 4 sets of scarves and beanies, or toques, as most people call them, I think. Those winners have been announced on Twitter, so be sure to go check that out. We'll be reaching out to the winners in the next day or two to get your shipping information, so keep an eye out for that. And then also, patrons, we have not forgotten about you. And if you want to sign up to be a patron for a giveaway, we're going to be giving away a jersey. We're not exactly sure when we can do it yet. We're working out the details, so just pay attention to Twitter and the episodes, and we'll be telling you what it's going to be. It'll revolve around some type of game. That's all you need to know for now. And then the last thing here is we have a lot of fans, a lot of listeners, and I have friends in Australia that play hockey out there and everything, and they are burning up. Literally. They could use a lot of help. I'll be making a donation this week myself, and I would love if some people could match me on that. If you want to help out, the best way that I've at least found to help so far is by donating directly to the firefighting causes out there, which you can find if you search up on Twitter or Google. It's pretty easy to find, but if you can help out, they really, really could use it. So now to start off the episode, do you have any grammar school?
I don't.
Okay, so no grammar school, only soft-boiled eggs. So let's move into then the week review. My first bit here is I don't understand why people are frothing at the mouth about Blackwood on both Calder votes, which I don't even think he's eligible for, and All-Star Game. He really hasn't been that good.
No, I agree. I don't. Although I haven't seen it that much. I feel like with the push from Amanda Stein, it's going to be Nico Hischier if anybody comes out of the Devils being the all-star vote in, which I kind of doubt because of her viral tweet that she then used to pump Nico Hischier, because why wouldn't you?
Go Nico Hischier, I guess. But I saw a ton of Blackwood love for Calder and for All-Star Game, and it was just weird. I went to look at his stats. It's like, am I missing something? Nope, I wasn't.
No, you're not. And you never will be. It's the Devils. I know they've been good lately, but it's the Devils.
Yeah.
All right, my first one is just to kind of address the Jim Montgomery situation. He admitted himself to rehab for alcoholism, which is a good step. It's always hard to see, to see what actually happened in situations like this, but he considers him being let go from the Stars organization a wake-up call. Probably in the best interest for everybody, and good on him for going ahead and taking that step. And we'll see what the future holds for him. I have to assume he'll be back in the NHL at some point, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we have to hope that he's back, right? And alcoholism is a disease. It's sad to see someone go because of that. And I think that there were a lot of takes that I saw on Twitter and other places where people were like, oh, I can't believe the NHL fired someone for a disease, right? Which is totally right. But I do think that if you look back at the language from when Jim Montgomery got fired, I think it's safe to assume he got caught doing something, did something. He also apologized to his wife. Like, I think there is something that happened that caused him to get fired. I don't think he got fired for the alcoholism. I think that something happened as a result of the alcoholism that got him fired. I think it's safe to assume that at this point.
Well, either way, can't be drunk on the job, disease or not. So there might have been a little bit of a push towards rehab, but either way.
Yeah. I mean, the NHL doesn't handle any kind of addiction all that well.
Yeah.
In many regards. So I also wouldn't be entirely surprised if that's what they did, but if you look back at the language, I'm pretty sure that's not what happened. Actually, my next point, my first and last, well, it's not my first, it's my last. Wow, it is a Saturday and I am all mixed up. My last point here for the week review is actually about Dallas, in that they're actually been playing fantastic recently. I think over the last, I don't remember what the stretch is, over the last, I think it's like 30, 35 games, something like that. They're actually tied with the Caps for the most points over that span. The problem is, though, and this is now a new stance for me on the Dallas Stars, is they're winning by playing defensively, and it's working for them. And so I don't see it turning around back to what they used to play. And so since they're not going to change what's working, I think that we now have to take this new Dallas Stars team, this new Klingberg, this new Sagan, this new Ben, and take them at face value. This is who they are, because they're not going to change what's working. This is who the Dallas Stars are. They are inherently a more defensive team. And I think that we're going to see a big drop off from Stars players offensively rest of the season.
I still like Sagan. I don't know about anybody else at this point, but I still like
Sagan is probably the only guy I like. Everyone else, I think I am very, very low on. Klingberg is a second, but not that high anymore, right? He's like a 45, 50 point guy, probably. And of course, he's been injured. So
I think his pace will be higher
Sagan,
than that. At least I hope so. I think he's a 55 pace guy, which is decent, but he doesn't get any peripherals. So
yeah, he's a points only guy.
Yeah. Speaking of the Stars, I know we talked about this on the Friday episode, but this is the week review. Corey Perry, 5-game suspension for that elbow and the resulting walk of shame on Ryan Ellis. Pretty expected there would be a fairly large blowback from that. Didn't get 10 or anything, but not too surprising given his history to see him get hit pretty good.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised, especially like they needed to make a statement too, right? It's a national game. A lot of new players, new fans are tuning in, and that's the first thing that they see, right? That's not a good look for the NHL. Yep, that is not a good look. So I'm not surprised that they kind of threw the book at him, given the context as well.
Yeah, I've got one more bit on the week review before I take us into the injury report. It looks like Brian Russ is going to get bumped from power play 1 when Crosby comes back. It's not guaranteed, but that's how the practicing was doing. And I don't like why. It looks like Jared McCann is the one that they're going to keep up on power play 1. I don't understand.
Why?
I don't know.
Makes no sense.
I don't know.
I really don't get it.
I really don't either. Anyway, let's move into the injury report. For some reason, a lot of people went out and not very many came back. This is being recorded at 11 p.m. Eastern on Saturday night. So if people went out on Saturday, they're probably not in here. Unless, actually, they're definitely not in here because I didn't add anybody for tonight. Except for Ronta. Actually, Ronta will be in here because that already happened. But beyond that, don't expect any kind of updates past Saturday the 4th. Okay, let's start with the Anaheim Ducks as we go in alphabetical order with the outs anyway. Andre Kasha is day-to-day with lower body injury because he just is always. Victor Olofsson is 5 to 6 weeks out with a lower body injury. Robin Lehner is day-to-day with a knee injury, but I don't like the idea of knee injuries, and I feel like they never wind up being day-to-day issues, so I'm a little worried about what that might lead to, but can't really speculate too much. Jonas Korpisalo is week to week with a knee injury. It's usually what I expect for a knee injury. So, John Klingberg is day-to-day with lower body injury. Andreas Athanasiou is day-to-day with lower body injury. Brendan Gallagher is out indefinitely with a concussion, which is a huge bummer. He was having a career year, really showing him like his shot totals were insane this season, even for him. So it sucks to see this kind of break into what he had going. I still think when he comes back, he will continue to be strong, but it would have been nice to see a complete 82 games out of him, but oh well. Ryan Ellis is day-to-day with an upper body injury. You know exactly why. Corey Perry. Jack Hughes is day-to-day with an upper body injury. Adam Pelech. Now, I'm only putting him on here because he's out for the season. He had some decent value in banger leagues. He has an Achilles issue, and he is done for the season. Anthony Duclair is day-to-day, I guess, with maybe a leg injury. They haven't really said, but it had to do with a shot block, so most likely a leg injury, unless he blocked it with his face. I actually didn't see what the block was, but Jake Gensel out for season with a shoulder injury. There's some bad ones in this one.
Wow, yep, a lot of people died this week.
Yep.
Ugh.
Jake Muzzin is week to week with a foot injury. We've got Jonathan Marchessault who's day-to-day with a lower body injury. It seems like it's not a big deal. At least they're alluding that it's going to be short-term, but who knows? As far as coming back, really not that many players of interest. Charlie McAvoy and Torrey Krug. So Torrey Krug's probably the biggest name coming back here. Charlie McAvoy is Charlie McAvoy. Nikita Zaitsev returned. Aaron Ekblad returned. And Patrick Hornquist returned. So, yeah. Hornquist is bad news for Rust, unfortunately, as far as the power play 1 situation goes as well.
I mean, you would have thought that Gensel being out was good news for him.
You would have. You would have thought
I
that.
still think it's too early.
I think so too, but who knows? I mean, nothing ever makes sense.
Yeah, I would also... I want to use this little opportunity here to say don't overreact to that first piece of news, right? Because that's the first time we've seen Crosby practice. It's literally the first time. So don't overreact and start selling Russ like crazy. We don't know. That could have been the first thing that they tried. It could change one game in. You've got to give it a little bit of breathing room here, because with Gensel out, the opportunity for Rust is there to continue his deployment rest of season. The question is just, will the Pens give it to him? Moving on to drop candidates, my first one here is going to be Justin Falk. We've talked about him before, but he got picked up a lot in the past week because he went on a little bit of a tear, and that tear left him at, just a 35-point pace over the last 30 days. Lovely. His minutes are awful. His shots are down. Everything is down. It's just, I don't get why he's still 40% owned. He really has nothing to offer. Both him and Subban are just ones that I don't get. I don't understand why they're still so owned.
Yeah, speaking of highly owned, now I'm going to mention Clayton Keller here, left wing, right wing, 61%. This is probably not the right week to drop him, actually. If I remember right, the Coyotes actually have a decent schedule. They do. They have an all right schedule.
Yep, they do.
But, and this is, of course, coming off of him in the middle of a 2-point game, or 2-goal game. I mentioned a bit about his unsustainability on Wednesday with his 100% IPP over the last 30 days and his 89% on the season, which is just ridiculous. And even with that, he's still sitting at like a 60-point pace. So there's reasons there. But beyond that, in the last, not including this game on Saturday, his shots have been down pretty significantly. His minutes are declining even from the course of the season where he played a little over 18 minutes a game last season. He's averaging a little under 17 minutes a game this season. And as you get more and more recent, his minutes drop even longer or even more, which is kind of understandable with the addition of Taylor Hall. So you know what? I think I noticed something. Did I say less and less shots? I should have said fewer and fewer shots. Hey.
Yeah.
Hey.
There you go. You caught it.
I'm trying, guys. I'm trying.
Mid-episode grammar school.
Yeah. And he's also getting fewer minutes on the power play, which he actually is power play 1 now, but he's still managing to not get quite the deployment that he's used to.
Just remember that he does have that big Nick Schmaltz energy on his line, though, so anything can happen.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's kind of how it works out. My next guy here is James Van Riemsdyk, left wing, 31%. He's a streamer, and that's it. Especially now there's a true top line for now, I guess. I don't know. They keep changing it up because it's Alain Vigneault, and I don't know. He's like the second coming of David Quinn. I guess he would actually be the first coming of... Anyways, James Van Riemsdyk, 21% shooting over the last 30 days. He also has a high IPP and on-ice shooting percentage. His power play percentage is just gone. Like, he doesn't play on the power play anymore. So I just don't see James Van Riemsdyk really being worth it. If you actually follow us on Twitter, we did tweet out a week ago or so. I pretty much said, if you're picking up James Van Riemsdyk, this could all be smoke and mirrors. So be really careful because his shooting percentage was ridiculously high and his IPP, everything was just ridiculously high. And he came back down to earth really quick. And that's what we're seeing here. And so at 31%, especially with him having been picked up somewhat recently, he's definitely droppable.
Yep. My next one here is David Krejci, center 35%. Oh, he's been a points only guy, but for him to be 35% is way too high in pretty much any aspect. Over the last month, he's sitting at a 44-point pace. A 44-point pace. He's also got 103 shot pace on the season. You can only even consider him in points only leagues at this point. If he's going to put up this type of like putrid peripherals, it's just he can't. He's way too much of a liability.
My next one here and my last one is a defenseman as well in Kevin Shattenkirk. Defenseman, 70% owned. He's still very, very highly owned. And I don't think he should be this highly owned because if you're talking 70%, that means that you're extending outside of the deep leagues, outside of the Cats leagues or points only leagues and into the Cats leagues and all that kind of good stuff. That's normally where the 70% lies. And the thing is, he's not really worth it in Cats leagues. His minutes and shots are way down. No power play time on ice. His hits and blocks are down on the season. On ice shooting percentage is down, but that's not really surprising given that he's now not getting as great deployment. So everything with Kevin Shattenkirk to me feels like a guy that has passed his kind of peak streamerness and should be dropped. I think there's better options out there to stream. I like Tony D'Angelo more at the moment. That's who he is, right? He's a Tony D'Angelo, Adam Fox, whoever's hot at the moment. And the thing is that Kevin Shattenkirk, I think people are holding on, hoping he gets whatever happened at the beginning of the season. But when you look at that beginning of the season, he was very over-indexed in a few areas. And on top of that, he gives you no peripherals. So if you have him in some kind of categories league, he's getting you zeros across the board a lot.
Yep. Speaking of zeros across the board, my last one is also defenseman Josh Morrissey, 55%.
I'm glad I don't own him.
he's also got a decent schedule this week, but I don't even know if it's enough to make up for what he gives you. Point pace is down to the point of being kind of irrelevant. I mean, he's still like a point every other game type player, which is great. And by great, I mean ugh. He's sitting at 41% IPP on the season, which is actually pretty much in line for what his norms are. He doesn't shoot a ton. He doesn't hit a ton. He doesn't block a ton. He doesn't really do much. Yeah. Pionk basically took all of his thunder and then just left him in a cold, dark room alone. And that's where Josh Morrissey is today.
Wow, that went dark.
I know.
Quick.
But that's
Just
what
like
it
the
is.
room that Morrissey's in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. That's okay, let's go from that dark moment to bright spot and long-term targets. And my first one is someone that we've talked about a little bit over the last week, and you'll see a hot hands on him during this next week, and that's Nikita Gusev. Left wing, right wing, 22% owned. Offensive zone start is high as expected. That's kind of what we talked about last time we talked about him. Was I think that if you look at his minutes, they're low, but the opportunities he's getting are very offensive, which is allowing him to get the points that he's been getting recently. He's been fantastic. His on-ice shooting percentage is up from 9% on the season to 11% over his last 13 games played. That's not that crazy. I don't mind that it's at around 11%. That's okay, and it's really more like 10.8%. So pretty sustainable in my opinion. Shots are up a lot over the last few games, and his shooting percentage is still in line. Minutes are up a bit on the season, so right now he's playing a little bit more minutes than he's been playing throughout the past week or whatever, or past season, my bad. But the thing is, when you look at the past season, it's tough to tell, right? Because at the beginning of the season, there were games where he played 3 minutes, and then he played 9 minutes, and it was just all over the place. So really, he's playing slightly kind of the same minutes. It's just that without Taylor Hall and those guys in front of him, he's getting much more offensive opportunities. The best part about it is that over the last 13 games, he's on a 76-point pace. You'd love to see it. Yeah, points only league. I think you've got to add him right now if you have a streamer spot.
He's on my list too. The only thing that really shakes me a bit is his 86% IPP, which is you know what? I didn't explain what that means this time. IPP is individual points percentage. It's basically the amount of times that when you're on the ice that a goal goes in that you're a part of it.
Yeah, the only thing with that is that he has been consistently at around 86%, and there's a lot of advanced stats that back up that he's actually been a fantastic play driver. So
I don't bet anybody in the entire league is going to be an 86% guy.
I don't think 86 is right, but I do buy a high IPP for him. Maybe not 86, but a high-ish.
I mean, McDavid is 75.
Well, that's because he plays with a bunch of hacks.
He was 82 last season, McDavid. So that's what you like. The elite of the elite is going to get about 80.
Nikita Gusev is elite. What are you talking about?
Okay, so my first one, I actually had Gusev as well, but I think I hinted at this one because I was surprised by the fact that this player has been owned in all of my leagues for a long time now. That he's only 26% owned, and that's Philip Hronek. I don't.
Yep.
What is going on?
Had him too. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's
been
already
great for a while.
He's already at a 45-point pace for the season, which, considering the fact that he started the season basically not getting enough minutes and not getting enough power play ice time, and now he's getting a lot of minutes. He's playing like almost 20, 25, 26 minutes a game. He's got top power play like on lock. His on-ice shooting percentage is right in line. He's a 50% IPP on the season, which is right in line with what you expect for a good defenseman. His shot pace is like, it's not great. 2 shots a game. It's not completely negligible, but it's all right. The thing is, he actually gets really good hits and like decent blocks. So for a Cats league, I don't understand. And most of us play in, or most of you listening to us are probably playing in standard Yahoo Cats, which means you count things like hits and you count things like shots. And you count obviously points and power play points. And he's doing pretty well in all those areas. Power play points is never really going to be a strength of Detroit, but having a power play one defenseman always gives you a little bit of a boost because that's where they're going to get most of their points. Well, that's a good position for them to get a good chunk of points, not most, but a good, you'd expect probably about a quarter to a third of their points to come on the power play, maybe a little bit more for the elite ones. And it's just good to see him being in that position because he is the future of Detroit's power play, at least from a QB standpoint.
My next one here, my last one now, because you took Philip Ronick from me. Wow, we are in sync today.
You're
My
not going to
last
have
one
my
is
last one.
also, I'm not. My last one here is from the Devils, actually, again. And that's Blake Coleman.
Hmm.
Left wing, right wing, 40% own. He is solely a Bangos play. That's it.
Big old
I'm actually,
Bangos.
I'm surprised he's owned 40%. That's kind of feels insane to me, given how bad the other part of his season has gone outside of these last few weeks. But his shots are up a ton over the last 13 games. It's something above like 400 shot pace. It's insanity. His hits are also just ridiculous, and his minutes are up to 18 and a half, which is one thing that always kind of held me back on Blake Coleman, was that he's a volume guy, and volume guys need minutes, as we've talked about in the past, right? To get a lot of shots. If you're just a volume guy who shoots a lot or hits a lot, the more minutes you get, the more those tend to go up. And Blake Coleman is one of those guys. And now that he's getting more around 18 and a half minutes, I really like him for the Bengals.
Yep. My last one is a points only play. Maybe a little bit more than that, depending on the depth of your league, and that's Alexander Kerfoot. He is playing pretty well since being put on the line with John Tavares and William Nylander. There's not a lot more to say. He's been on a point per game pace for a little while now. He's on a 76 point pace over the last month. His IPP's maybe a little high, but I read this wrong. He's on a point per game pace for the last week, but has been on a good pace for the last 2 weeks as well. So I expect his pace to be pretty decent, considering his 7% ownership and the fact that he's triple eligible, left wing, right wing, and center, gives him that extra flexibility. He's never going to be an elite player. He's not great for Cats leagues, but in deep leagues and in points only leagues, I do think 7% seems low. And with his versatility and the fact that he's been so good from a point perspective and does get power, I mean, not much, he's on power play 2, which is not where you want to be on the Maple Leafs, but at least he gets some time, unlike a guy like Mikheyev when he was playing. So there's something to like here. But again, this is more of a points only play or is a super deep league play.
Yeah, I actually had him on my short-term targets list for this week because I really like Toronto's schedule because they have the 3 off nights. So that's what I had. And his minutes are up too, which I believe you mentioned. So I like Alex Kerfoot.
It's kind of in line with him playing on that line.
Yeah, the shooting percentage is the only thing that's high in that kind of over the last at least 12 games or so. He's had a high shooting percentage. And that's the only thing that kind of alarms me a little bit. But like you said, in a deep league, you got to take gambles on some guys, right?
Well, yeah, but his high shooting percentage means 1 goal in his last 6 games, and it's still high. He doesn't shoot.
Yeah, that's true. He's like a defenseman.
It's kind of a weird one.
Oh man, but I like him a lot, and I had him on short-term targets, so you will not hear him there. But I agree with Brandon. Okay, moving on to the week preview and talking about the schedule here. So teams with 4 games are going to be Winnipeg, the Los Angeles Kings, Arizona Coyotes, New Jersey Devils, Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Vancouver Canucks. So some of those teams have been hurting you over the last few weeks, and now they start to make a little bit of a comeback, such as Tampa Bay. Teams with 2 games are going to be Minnesota only, and then teams that play 3 off nights, there's only 2, and that's Winnipeg and Toronto. But this is, again, another week where you have a situation where there's a few teams that play 2 off nights early in the week, and a lot of teams that play 2 off nights later in the week. So you can also be smart about it. Instead of targeting just the 3 off nights, you can also target 2 different teams and pick up for the start of the week and pick up for the end of the week.
Yeah, definitely. You want me to go ahead and go into my first one here?
Yeah, why not? Let's switch it up. You can go first today.
Okay. My first one is, I have 2 on the same team. I think I'm just going to take them both. I don't know I assume you'll have one. I don't know if you'll have both. Jeff Carter and Tyler Toffoli. Do you have either one?
Ew, no. I stayed away from the Kings. They're awful.
Well, Toffoli's been playing pretty well recently. He's on a 63-point pace over his last 13 games. He's top line with Kopitar. He's playing 20 minutes a game lately, 20 to 21. He's kind of power play 1-ish. He's listed there. I don't know. Maybe he's not. It's hard to tell what's going on with their power play at this point, but I like his deployment. I like the fact that he's finally getting good time on ice, which is something he desperately needed. And with that is coming a huge increase in shot production. He's at a 300 shot pace over his last week, which is, only 2 games, so doesn't really count, but still getting about 3 shots a game, which is roughly where we'd expect him when he gets decent time on ice. I don't know if this is them trying to prop up his value for a potential trade later. Again, we don't really recommend hanging on to a guy for the idea of him being traded. It's a little too risky, but I like his schedule coming into this next week with the at least he has Monday, Wednesday, and then you can kind of get rid of him if you need to. But yeah, and the ice time is nice too. And going kind of right along the same lines as Jeff Carter, a little bit more versatile with that center, left wing, right wing kind of triple eligibility. Both these guys have an insanely low on ice shooting percentage, but that just goes with everybody on the Kings. They shoot a lot, nothing goes in, and they wind up with like 7% on ice shooting, which is where they're both sitting at. Carter he's kind of the definition of the Kings. Shot volume is there, not getting the points. But I think this is as good a week as any to kind of take a gamble on him, as you know the shots will be there. And, you just got to hope for the best beyond that. But I think these guys are decent pickups considering they're only Carter's 20% owned, Toffoli's 9% owned. Toffoli's left wing, right wing as well. So they both have some versatility as far as deployment, and they're widely available. So maybe worth a gamble for Monday, Wednesday. If things don't pan out, you can get rid of them. If they do pan out, then you can hang on to them for Thursday and Saturday if you have the room.
I can't believe you had that much to say about the Kings. I'm shocked. I mean, they do have a good schedule this week, but I'm shocked you had that much to say. I'm going to
pat myself on the back about the Carter is the Kings because that felt like such the right analogy. If you've been paying attention to Carter's whole season, where he's like shooting like a madman. He's up 40% in shots. I feel like the whole team is up 40% in shots and just no points, none to speak of.
Maybe they need to actually be able to get good at hockey and get to good scoring opportunities instead of just shooting it on net all the time.
Yeah, I'll take the shots. At least I'm getting something.
I'm just bitter that they beat the Rangers. That's probably it too. So my next one here, or my first one, is Neil Pionk, defenseman. I know he's 69% owned. It's a lot, but it'd be absolutely foolish not to mention him on a week like this because being at 69% owned and how good he's been, I've got to assume that the only people that haven't picked him up are shallow leagues where you have really good defensemen and you don't really have room for Pionk. That's, I guess, what I'd assume. So he's a long-term target, absolutely. But I get it if you have really good defensemen and just don't have room. But if you're in that situation, Neil Pionk is one of my favorite ads of the whole week. Winnipeg has a fantastic schedule. Pionk's been phenomenal on a ridiculous point pace right now. I can't see a reason not to pick him up really this week. And on top of that, he gets some bangos. So this is the week if you haven't yet.
Yeah, I love Pionk. I luckily have him in a few leagues, which feels good. My next one is a guy that I really, as everybody knows, I don't like long-term, and that's Zach Hyman. It's just a Toronto schedule type thing. I do like him. I think he actually got an empty net goal in the game tonight, but it's not reflected in the stats I'm looking at. Doesn't have any points in his last week, and his shot totals are Zach Hyman shot totals, so they're not great, but he does have that good deployment, and that's kind of the only thing you can really take away from this. I don't like him long-term, as I've mentioned forever, but the fact that he's got good deployment and a good schedule, and the fact 3 off nights is hard to beat, and it's hard to find this week. So if you need them, Hyman's there. If you don't need them, and honestly, the on nights, the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday of this week, aren't super busy. So check your schedule and decide really if you need a guy like this, where if you're grabbing a Hyman, you probably want him for the whole week, as I think they play Monday, Wednesday, Sunday. So I guess you could drop him after Wednesday if you need to. So yeah, maybe just play him Monday, Wednesday, and kind of similar to the Kings that I mentioned. Decide on Thursday what you're doing.
My last one here is going to be from the Pittsburgh Penguins, who have a good end of week schedule. So at the beginning they don't do much, but at the end they have 2 late week off night games. Patrick Hornqvist, right wing, 51% owned. Lots of power play time on ice since coming back. He's up to like 70, I think 5% of the team's power play at the moment. Shots are insanely up since coming back. Only 3 games, right? So there's a very small sample size, but he's been shooting a lot. Just has let it rip, which may come down once Crosby comes back. And his shooting percentage and on ice shooting percentage are unsustainable. But again, only 3 games, right? So I'd say he's a potential long-term target, maybe, if things go right for him. But he also just could be a middle-of-the-pack streamer guy that you don't really need. But in deeper leagues, I'd absolutely be taking a look, especially in deeper banger leagues.
Yeah. Okay. My last one here, I feel like it's funny that I'm mentioning him, is Jonas Donskoy.
You can't do this.
I can. He's got 2 off nights early in the week.
10-minute rant about Donskoy, and now you're suggesting.
He went back to top line, top power play.
Ugh.
The rant was when he was not there, and now he's there again, of course. Played 20 minutes. I don't know what he played tonight, but again, he's pretty low owned, all things considered, which surprised me actually. He's only 25% owned, left wing, right wing, and the fact that the nights you get him for are fairly early on. You can get rid of him by Saturday if you want. If you want to have him for Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, if you have the availability, he's worth a look. I don't know that. I feel like he's kind of like in the back of my mind because I do expect that top line to go back to what we expect and for the silliness to stop happening. But who knows? I mean, you can't really bet on anything these days. And if they're going to give him that deployment, they're going to give him 20 minutes. Points could be there for him.
And there you go. That is the week preview. So pay attention to what's happening the rest of the week. I already told you Nikita Gusev, Hot Hands is coming. Pay attention. We may be putting out something for the patron giveaway this week, hopefully. So just keep an eye out for that. And other than that, we will see you on Wednesday for the Unsustainable episode.
Yep. Thanks for listening.